All right then. So this is the golden way of a healing fast track 25 lesson 1 introduction. What I should have said actually, just to let everyone know, is that there will be course notes as well. So you make your own notes if you like, but there will be course notes to the course. So there's a PowerPoint which I'm about to go through, and there's a video. So I'm going to get the transcript to the video. I'm going to use AI on it to make some course notes. Some of the lessons have already got colourful course notes with pictures, and some haven't. But I'm going to use AI on the transcript of the video to produce a set of readable and printable course notes, and upload them every Monday afternoon as well. Right then, so this is the organisation AYA, which stands for Awaken Your Awareness. Now, we'll explain exactly what that means as we go through. But it's also a Sanskrit word, actually. AYA is a Sanskrit word, and it means the arrival of a new state or a new phase. And this is our logo at AYA. It's the blue butterfly. Now, the butterfly is a symbol of transformation, because the types of healing that we're going to talk about in a bit, we consider to be a type of transformation. And the blue colour, or the deep electric blue colour, is the frequency or the colour of unconditional love. Now, what do I mean by frequency of unconditional love? I will get to that. We'll talk about that a bit later on. Now, to introduce AYA, really, you can't introduce AYA without actually talking about the fundamentals of our philosophy. There is a campaign that is running through all of our projects at AYA, and that is called the Silent Revolution, or the Silent Inner Peace Revolution. So you can't really introduce AYA without first talking about what this is. So it probably hasn't. Now, first of all, I am going to scoot over this very quickly because we've got a whole lesson on the Silent Revolution a bit further on. Now, it can't have escaped anyone's attention that the world is in need of a revolution of some kind. But it's not a normal revolution that we need, because normal revolutions that we've seen in the past tend to be aggressive, don't they? They tend to be violent, overthrowing of governments and that sort of thing. That's not what we need, of course not. It's not that type of revolution. That's why it's a silent revolution. It's a silent inner peace revolution that needs to happen in the minds of every individual in society. That's the only thing that's going to change the world. So our concept of the silent inner peace revolution, and by the way, the concept is not new, it's not our concept. We're calling it the silent inner peace revolution, but lots of people around the world are working on this, of course. So our concept of the silent revolution involves self-healing. Now, self-healing is a set of practical techniques that people can integrate into their daily lives, and the purpose is to increase well-being. Now, between us, that is actually just a rebranding of spirituality, a rebranding of spiritual evolution, a rebranding of spiritual development, if you like. But when somebody goes on a self-healing journey, they start to change. The personality starts to change. We start to decrease the negative parts of the human personality, and we start to increase the positive parts of the human personality. And people become kinder. They become more tolerant. They become happier, more compassionate, more unconditional love. People start finding a desire to help others, and more sense of community. So this is on an individual level, of course. But imagine what happens when it happens on a collective level. Well, that completely transforms society. Or that would completely transform society. Now, we're not saying that this is going to happen overnight. This is a very long-term thing. But we need to start. We need to start right away. So that's what the silent inner peace revolution is all about. It's about changing the fabric of our society by changing the individual. And that will lead to this concept of the golden world, or the healed world, or what some people call a new earth. So this is our little definition of the silent revolution. A silent healing revolution of the collective inner human spiritual and psychological condition, causing a change in values and behaviour that spreads from person to person like a chain reaction or ripples in a pond until it becomes a global collective movement, changing the very fabric of our societies. So that's the silent revolution in a nutshell. Any questions so far? Okay, so that is the central campaign or central theme that runs through all of our projects at AYA. So this is the AYA Snowflake Plan, only because it looks like a snowflake. So this is a mind map, you could say, and it's got our departments on it, it's got our goals on it, it's got all our projects on it that we want to complete. Some of these projects have been started, some of them haven't yet been started. So let's have a quick look at this. So these are our departments. AYA Central is in the middle, that's the organisational centre. And there's 7 departments in total. Let's look at AYA Healing first. So I'm not going to go through these in great detail, we haven't got time today, but this is just to give you a quick introduction to the organisation and the things that we want to achieve. So this is the healing department, it's all about healthcare, obviously. Now there's lots of different departments within each department. Now the one here that's most important for this lesson is AYA NHS. That is Network Healers Symbiosis. AYA NHS. We'll talk about that in a second. AYA Shanta, by the way, means end of life. And the education department. I should say, quite a lot of these in AYA Healing haven't actually been started yet. We've started AYA NHS. You could say we've started AYA Shanta in a small way, but the other ones haven't been started yet. Well, animals we have started actually, because Network Healers does deal with animals as well. But some of the other ones we haven't started yet. You know, AYA Care, care homes, rehab centres, that takes a lot of funding, so we haven't started. The education department. So we've started pretty much everything on this particular list, and this particular course is part of our academy. And we've started research as well. We've just started research. And we'll be talking about research quite a lot throughout this course, in fact, because the research is actually integral to Network Healers. We need to back up what we're saying in Network Healers. We need to back it up with scientific evidence. The Foundations Project is a project working with certain organisations in society, like homeless charity, the council, health and social care staff, that sort of thing. Teaching self-healing techniques. Okay, let's move on. So this is the festivals department, AYA Gathering. Now we haven't really started this department because this again takes a lot of money. But we do have plans to create lots of different types of festivals. Hopefully partnering up with the NHS and doing well-being festivals for the general. And AYA Nature. Now, this department is all about rebalancing humanity with nature. So we've got loads of projects, goals that we want to achieve in AYA Nature. We've kind of started this, but it is on hold at the moment because of funding. We do have I keep saying funding actually, we do have quite a large or extensive funding plan. We've started quite a number of businesses which will hopefully fund a lot of these projects, but they haven't started being profitable yet. We're only at the start. And AYA Nation. So AYA Nation is our political party, and we have started this in a small way. But you can't make lasting change in the world without going to the top, can you? And that's governance. So yes, we are going to start a political party at some point, all to do with healing and well-being. And AYA Change is our campaigning department. You could say we've started this. Again, you know, we haven't got a lot of funding, so we haven't been doing a lot of these to a great extent, but you could say the silent revolution has been started because that is part of everything we do. So that's our campaigning department, AYA Change. All right, that is the AYA Snowflake Plan. Any questions about that? I know that was a very quick introduction. Any questions to start with? All right, so we've talked about self-healing a little bit because it's so integral to what we do, so integral to Network Healers and integral to the silent inner peace revolution. So let's just talk a little bit about self-healing. Not much because we've got tons of it coming, but just to give you a quick introduction to what we mean by self-healing. So this is the AYA healing pyramid. Now don't worry about trying to read all the stuff on the sides, I'll go through it in a second. But this is just to show you that it is a three-dimensional structure, the AYA healing pyramid. It's a tetrahedron, in fact. And it's got information on three sides. So let's have a quick look at that. So there's three sides. There's a blue one, a green one, and a yellow one. So side one is the names of the layers of the pyramid. So what we've done in the AYA healing pyramid is that we've separated the human system into 5 different layers. And there is a cascading effect of health and well-being down the pyramid. So one layer impacts the next, you can say. So we'll start at the bottom there, material body layer. That's this material physical body that everybody knows so well because you can see it, you can feel it, touch it, solid. Made of matter, that's why we're calling it the material body. Now the next layer up is the bioenergy layer. Now this layer is not so well known, of course. It's been known for thousands of years, culturally and intuitively, you could say. But it hasn't been known, or it isn't known yet to medical science and healthcare. But that is starting to change, of course. That is very slowly starting to change. But the bioenergy layer is the magnetic field systems around the human body, that surround the human body, that sustain the human body, that is produced by the human body. Now we can use traditional words like chi, you've probably heard of that word, or prana, or some people call it life force. Well, these are all quite traditional words, or subtle energy is another one. These are all quite traditional words, but we can understand a little bit more these days about what this stuff is. It's magnetic fields, or different types of magnetic fields. And I'm not just talking about, let's say, the aura. You know, that springs to people's mind when you talk about biomagnetic fields. The aura is an emanation of a magnetic field. But it goes even further than that with energy anatomy, which is magnetic fields arranged into structures which create certain types of anatomy in our system. This is all part of our biology, but not yet known to science. So that's the bioenergy layer. The emotional layer is next, and of course that's our emotions, that's what makes us feel good and bad. Understanding the emotional layer is very important for self-healing, of course. Understanding the emotional cycle and what fuels the emotional cycle. And here we're going to go into what we call karma emotion. We'll talk about that later. Sorry. The next is the psychological layer. So that's everything in our personality. The psychological layer is everything within the personality system of the human, let's say. Now that includes our subconscious memories, that includes our personality characteristics, that includes our values, that even includes our psychological identity, the human identity, who we think we are. And I've finished on identity there for a good reason. Yeah, I'm just going to get on to side 2, just going through side 1 and then I'll go on to side 2. So the psychological layer includes the psychological identity. Now, the spiritual layer is at the top of the pyramid. So that's at the top of the pyramid. It has an impact on all the different layers underneath it. So what do we mean by spiritual? Because that word is very loaded. It's a very loaded word, spiritual. It can mean all sorts of different things to different people. What we mean when we use the term spiritual is the idea or the concept that there is a silent inner peace inside everyone just waiting to be found. That silent inner peace is inside everybody. If we reduce the contents of the mind and the emotions down to a certain level, we will find that silent inner peace. Or let's say, realize it, because you can't actually find it, because it's actually non-physical. But when we realize it, we realize it's coming from our own awareness. It's coming from our own consciousness. Hence the silent inner peace revolution. So when we spend time in the spiritual layer, then it has a knock-on effect all the way down the pyramid, all the way down these layers of the human system. Okay, so that is side 1, the layers. This is side 2 of the pyramid. So side 2 of the pyramid are these self-healing exercises that we apply to each one of the layers. So, for example, in the material body layer, no surprise, it's nutrition and exercise. For the bioenergy layer, it's energy breath work. That is breathing exercises. The combination of energy work and breathing exercises. Or you could call it pranayama yoga, which is a section of yoga that's been around for thousands of years. The yogic science of breath. Those are the self-healing techniques that we use on the bioenergy layer to keep it healthy. And in the emotional layer, it's karma emotion work. Now there's lots of different, these are categories of exercises, of course. There's lots of different exercises within the emotional layer, which we teach. That's all to do with emotional management and karma emotions. Karma emotion, just briefly, karma emotion is emotional memory. Now we've got lots of lessons to come on what karma is and karma emotion. It's part of our research program as well. But what we're saying here is that karma emotion is a transport system for emotional memory that evolved over millions and millions of years in earlier animals as a way of retaining emotional memory over subsequent generations without needing vertical DNA inheritance, i.e. bypassing reproduction. What we're talking about here, reincarnation, of course. I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. So that's the emotional layer, karma emotion work. Understanding karma emotion and understanding the emotional cycle. Okay, the next layer up is the psychological layer, and the category of exercises for that is awareness of the mind stream, because it all has to start with awareness of the mind stream. In the psychological layer, it all has to start with being aware of the thoughts that are running through our mind all day long. So there's lots of different exercises with regards to that. And then for the spiritual layer, it is the journey of meditation. That looks a little bit small. Hopefully you can read that. But it says the journey of meditation. There's lots of different meditation techniques to get ourselves to the spiritual layer. These are self-healing techniques that people need to integrate into their daily lives. Like eating. It should be as important as eating. Or brushing your teeth. Or whatever. Okay, so that's side 2, self-healing exercise. Right then, side 3, the results. Now I'm not going to go through these now because I think otherwise I'm not going to have time. We'll go through these lots later on. But these are the results of self-healing. Or if you're starting a self-healing journey, these are the goals of self-healing. This is what we can expect along the way in a journey of self-healing. So there we are, that's the AYA healing pyramid. Okay, before I move on, any questions so far? Yeah, so, both I would say. And what we would suggest is that actually higher minds act like a bit of a hive network. So higher minds are all connected through a certain type of telepathy, higher mind telepathy. They're all connected in a network. So you could say that all of life, or all of the souls on this planet, is just part of one network. And it's constantly sharing, uploading, downloading, constantly sharing information. So yeah, I think that's what it looks like. But on an individual level, I think the first part of your question, you can access it, yes, all the time. In fact, higher minds are constantly sending through knowledge and information through intuition. And that's higher mind to lower mind communication. And then on top of that, as you go through self-realization, it is an inevitable part of self-realization that you remember your past lives as well. And yeah, we are going to talk a lot about that. No worries. We're going to talk a lot about that as well. Right, so let's go back to the AYA Snowflake quickly and AYA NHS, AYA Network Healers Symbiosis. And let's introduce the network healers. So, network healers symbiosis. Symbiosis is a word that means living and working together for mutual benefit. So there's 7 founding principles of AYA network healers. And we use the symbol of the daffodil because the daffodil is already a symbol of healing and rebirth. So let's go through these founding principles. So 1 is the AYA healing pyramid, of course, and I've just gone through that. So that is self-healing. Massive principle within network healers. Next one is called the Book of Codes. Now, a good example of that is this thing here. I don't know if you guys have seen this much, but this is the Oxford Handbook of Clinical Medicine. This is like a doctor's little Bible that they carry around with them. It's got a list of all the medical conditions, all the different symptoms, all the different treatments. Very useful if you're a doctor. Now, we're actually working on producing something like that for healing. And it's going to be called the Book of Codes. So we're going, every condition that we come across, we are documenting it, and we're documenting what types of energy healing that were actually needed to help it. And that is going to be also, there's going to be information there which gets abbreviated to a little code to help people when they're using energy healing techniques. That's why it's called the Book of Codes. Next one is karma emotions. So yes, as I mentioned, karma emotions, emotional memory. Karma, what we're saying is that karma is the transport mechanism for emotional memory. So if you can imagine, I've got to be very brief here because we've got lots of lessons on karma and emotion coming up. But if you can imagine it being a survival technique to hold on to emotional memory, things like fear, for example, holding on to it without needing reproduction. That means that emotional memory would spread in a species far quicker than if it was taught from parent to offspring, for example. So it's a species-wide survival adaptation. And that's, in fact, that's what we are suggesting that that's how reincarnation evolved in the first place, as a mechanism for the retention of emotional memory over a species-wide population. But now in humans, it's quite clearly evolved into a completely new, much more complex system. But it's a founding principle of network healers because understanding where somebody's, what we call karmic personality spectrum has come from. We all have a karmic personality spectrum. We'll talk about that later on. But it's this spectrum that gets dragged through from life to life. The base of the personality when somebody's born, when that karma starts to burn from that karmic personality spectrum. Now, understanding where all these emotions come from is a massive part of healing, of course. We are going into this with a view to apply it to healthcare. So that's karma emotions. And energy healing, of course, energy healing is a massive part of network healers. Energy healing, which is a huge part of this course, obviously. Energy healing is the transfer of healing energy from one person to another person, or even within yourself. So energy healing is also part of self-healing. You can do it on yourself, of course, and the best way of learning energy healing is to practice on yourself because you're always there. There's always something to practice on. So we think that energy healing also evolved millions of years ago when animals started to evolve and live in social groups, probably around the same time that emotions started to evolve. And we think that it evolved as a way of sharing healing energy in the group to help certain individuals that were either injured or sick. So it's a big part of network healers. It's to help people with their healing journey. You know, the healing journey really is a self-healing journey or a spiritual journey. But we give them a helping hand with energy healing. And the fifth principle is network of healers. We work in a network. We work in a group, working together. So network healers, the idea is going to be lots of different hubs lots of different groups of healers, 7 healers in a hub, working together, and then lots of hubs as well. So a network of hubs. And the reason for that is that, once you go past a certain amount of people, it becomes less productive. So 7 is a good amount of people to be working together because the healers will be sharing knowledge about the healing partners, having meetings with the hub. So it's less productive having huge groups. But it's still a network of healers. And the energy healing, or the healing energy which is going to those recipients, is coming from all of the network of healers in network healers. All right, the sixth principle is bioenergy anatomy. And that, as I mentioned before, this is the bioenergy layer, of course. Subtle magnetic energy fields in and around the body. Now, the reason why we've made it a principle is because it's not well known at all in medical science. And it's so important to healing. It is so important. So knowledge of this is very, very important to healthcare, which is why a lot of our research programs are going to be angled towards the bioenergy level. So that is 6 principles on 6 petals of the daffodil. So where is the 7th principle? Well, the 7th principle is a little bit hidden. The 7th principle is in the middle, and that is awareness. Awareness is the 7th principle of network healers. And that is that little symbol that we've got in the middle, the little white symbol in the middle. That's our symbol for awareness. And it's a little bit hidden on the daffodil for a reason, because it's a little bit hidden in real life. And that is the 7th principle. You could say the most important. And that's the spiritual layer. So let's just quickly talk about what is awareness. Now again, I'm going to be very brief here because we've got a whole lesson on what is awareness later on. But I want to introduce this particular symbol because it crops up everywhere. So we've got to show you exactly what this symbol means. So, you know, you can't really describe awareness. When you find it, you don't find it, you realise it. And if you try and describe it, it's very difficult. And this is going to be part of this course, you know, getting you guys to describe it in your own words. But if you could describe it using words, finite words that don't really get anywhere close to what it really is, these are the best ones we could find. So awareness is timeless, dimensionless, infinite, conscious peace. So let me explain this little symbol. So that means timeless. That's a big 0 and a big T. 0 time. That's dimensionless. That's a big 0 and classic dimensions, X, Y, and Z axis. 0 dimensions. Not in space at all. Not in space and time. This symbol here is a recognized symbol for infinity. It's infinite. There is nothing that exists which is not part of it. It is conscious, of course. That's why it's called awareness. And that is a recognized symbol for consciousness already. And this is a recognized symbol for peace. And it's called the banner of peace. And it's been used before. So that's that symbol. Timeless, dimensionless, infinite, conscious peace. Now another word for it is you. Because that is you. Awareness is you. And realizing that fact is what we call awakening. Or what we would say is the true meaning of the word awakening in this context. So what is awakening? Now, we're going to talk about this a lot in this course, of course. But the term we like to use is self-realization. Because self-realization is descriptive of what it is. It's the realization of our true self. Now, the word true self, or the phrase true self, has been a little bit commandeered now and then. So some people use the word in different ways. And as we go through this course, it'll become clear exactly the way that we mean it. And it's got nothing to do with the psychology of the personality. It's beyond personality, the true self. So self-realization, you could say, is a migration of identity from the false self or the mask identity to the true self. And when we find that, we find unshakable inner peace. Okay, so let's crack on then. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about the course and the lessons and modules and stuff. First of all, actually, the qualifications system that we're developing. So there's 3, just so everyone's aware, there's 3 level of qualifications. I think for most of you this doesn't really matter, to be honest with you, but there is 3 options of qualifications. The first option is for people who just want to attend because they're interested and they just want to attend the lessons and not do any of the assignments. So for those people, they'll get a course completion certificate. So the next level is for those people who like a theory certificate, a full course theory certificate. So they're going to attend the lessons and do all the assignments and the exam and everything like that. But they don't want to do the year's practical. They don't want to they don't want to be taking on healing partners. And that just means that, you know, they don't feel that they're going to be actually in a healing hub, because there's lots of things that go on at AYA. There's lots of projects and lots of things that we're planning. Not everyone's going to be in a healing hub, for example. So for those people, we're going to offer a theory certificate, which is the next level up. And then the full certificate is theory plus practical, and that is the 2 years. And that is for people who are going to be working within network healers, and that's the full certificate. So that includes the lessons, all the assignments, the exam, and a few more little things like DBS checks and safeguarding, and then the years taking on of healing partners under supervision. And that's for people who are going to be part of the healing department. Okay. And in terms of accreditation, I should mention that what we're doing is we want to be eventually accredited. We want to eventually move healing, or certainly our concept of healing, into the mainstream. So at the moment it's under voluntary regulation, which is the CNHC. So eventually we want to go into statutory regulation, and we want to become integrated into the NHS. We want this to be part of conventional medicine in a complementary way, not in an alternative way, in a complementary way, to work with conventional allopathic medicine. Now, to do that, that's going to take a long time because it works on an evidence-based system, of course. So that's why we're starting all our research projects, to build a body of evidence so that we can make that jump over to the mainstream. Until then, we're going to carry on in the voluntary regulation sector. So we are going to get registered with CNHC, and what we're going to do is we're going to create our own profession, or our new category. So for example, in the CNHC there's lots of different categories. Reiki is a category, for example. Yoga is a category. I think nutrition is a category. There's lots of different categories like that. We're going to start a new one. We're going to start a new one because we don't fit in the energy healing category, because there is an energy healing category as well as the Reiki category. We don't really fit in energy healing, to be honest, because it's only one part of what we do. So we're going to start our own category, which means we'll become an awarding body for those qualifications. So we're planning to do that through this winter, and we're building this course in a way which complies. And now AYA has been going for so many years. Now we pretty much comply with everything else they need to become an awarding body. So hopefully by June next year, this is what we're aiming for, by June next year we should be accredited with the CNHC. And then the journey will start to get us accredited, or to move us over to statutory regulation, which is really where we want to be, regulated by things like Ofqual, things like that, which is where the NHS is, really. Okay, so any questions, comments? I'll keep asking, just in case. All right, so let's go over the modules and the lessons. I'll share some with you. Okay, so these, I'm going to show you two documents here, and these are on Classroom as well, and I'm going to talk about Classroom in just a second, Google Classroom. So this is the list of modules on the course. Now, there are 7 modules. 7 is the number. And there are 42 lessons. So this list here shows all the different lessons in each module. They're not in order though. This is why the lesson number is out of place here, because when we're actually going to deliver them, They're in a slightly different order because sometimes you've got basic ones and advanced ones in the same modules. So the first module is Network Healers. We've got 4 lessons in that. Self-healing. And actually this particular module, self-healing, these are the 7 lessons in the self-healing module. These are actually part of the pyramid course. So some of you have done or have been or done some parts of the pyramid course. The pyramid course is a course, a 7-lesson course, short course that we deliver for the general public on Saturday mornings, and we deliver it once a month. And it's just on a revolving, it just keeps revolving basically all year round. Every month there is a Saturday morning where we deliver a lesson. And that's the AYA Healing Pyramid, and there's 7 lessons in that. So that is actually part of this course. In fact, this one is actually more, because in the one for the public, we chopped it right down because the lessons were too long. So it's a more detailed version. Reincarnation and karma, got a load of lessons on that. Energy healing, a load of lessons on energy healing. Anatomy and physiology. And then we've got a load of lessons on our projects, all the different research projects we're going to go through. And then 7, the awareness of the source. So some lessons on the awareness of the source. Right. Let me go to the list of lessons now so I can actually go through them individually with you. Right then, so you got them. So this is on Google Classroom as well, so you can always go and dip into these spreadsheets whenever you want to, okay? Because this one's got the actual dates on here. So lesson number and date, and these are the lessons. So 1st of September is Introduction to Network Healers, that's today. Next one is going to be AYA Guide to Healing. So we start with that because we've got to explain exactly what we mean when we use the word healing, because healing is such a broad term. There's so many different aspects to healing, so many different techniques out there. This has been pondered about for thousands of years, hasn't it? Well, so we've got to start with what we mean by the term healing. So we've got a nice diagram to go through with you to explain exactly what we mean. And it encompasses the whole thing, including the whole spiritual journey, the journey of the universe, self-realization, everything. Okay, then we go into the AYA Healing Pyramid. So the AYA Healing Pyramid, we've got a summary lesson on that, and then we go through each layer in turn. The spiritual layer, the psychological layer, the emotional layer, bioenergy layer, the material body layer, and the silent revolution. Then we go into reincarnation. And we go into our concept of reincarnation, which I kind of explained earlier, really. The idea that reincarnation evolved millions of years ago in early animals as a way of retaining emotional memory, species-wide, as a survival technique or a survival tactic for a species. So we'll talk about the basics, and also we'll talk about our reincarnation project in that as well. How we plan to actually start a scientific-based research project around reincarnation. Now, we're not the first to do that, of course. There's lots of people around the world working on reincarnation. And if you're interested, one of the biggest databases of evidence is actually in the University of Virginia in America. A guy called Professor Jim Tucker, I think. But I think he's just retired. In fact, he spent most of his life searching for evidence. I think it's in the division of consciousness and perceptual studies, I think it's called. But all that is subjective evidence. So it's a lot of it is children's stories, children's memories, because a lot of reincarnational memories come from children. And they've actually gone back and corroborated some of these stories that they found from children. They've gone back and found the actual memory that the child was describing in the manner of their death or whatever it was. Anyway, so reincarnation 1, reincarnation 2, which is spiritual evolution. The idea of why reincarnation exists, why life exists, why the universe exists, the journey towards self-realization, the journey of life, which is the journey of growing self-awareness, growing intelligence, growing of complexity, towards the eventual self-awareness of the universe itself. And reincarnation is the cycles of life which get the universe to that point. Then we talk about the collective mind and energy biosphere. Now, the collective mind is this network of energy, network of mind energy, which connects all of higher minds. It's the reason it evolved with reincarnation. And it's the reason why souls can exist in between incarnations. And this contains the astral planes. So we'll talk about the astral planes in that lesson as well, and how we can actually go traveling around the astral planes. Next is karma, the karma emotion engine. That's the emotional cycle, or let's say a more detailed version of the emotional cycle. How karma is created, how it's burnt, how it creates our emotions, and how it's stored in the energy body, because karma is stored in the outside layers of the energy body. When you can see the energy body, and you can train yourself to see it, you can see it as a mosaic of colour in the outside layers of the energy body. There's trillions and trillions of cells on the outside of the energy body, and they each hold a specific type of subtle energy, which we call karma emotion. So that stores it for long-term storage, life to life. And then it burns in a particular cycle called the karma emotion engine cycle. And that's what produces our emotion. Okay, then we'll start talking about energy healing and understanding the basics first of all. We take everything back to the basics in this course, by the way. So it's kind of like a mixture of taking everything back to basics, but also the most advanced as well. So that's why it's a fast track course. It's everything in one. We're taking everything all the way back to the beginning, so you don't have to have any experience of any of this stuff, but it also goes to the most advanced level of energy healing as well. Then we'll talk about intuition. That is the communication between a higher mind and a lower mind. The higher mind being the thinking part of the soul, the lower mind being the incarnation. Lower mind plus material body, that's one incarnation. Higher mind plus energy body, that's the reincarnating bit. So we'll talk about intuition, the communication of higher mind to lower mind. Then we'll talk about the Free Flow project, that's our energy healing project. And then a lesson on emotional and energetic self-protection. No course on energy healing is complete without talking about emotional and energetic self-protection. And here we're going to talk a lot about chakra cords. Chakras are energy pumps in the energy body. They're also emotion regulators. And when we make emotional connections with people around us, we're constantly transferring emotional energy, which is a type of magnetic field. And if we don't manage those chakra connections, then they do whatever they want. All sorts of stuff is transferred. I mean, this is how energy healing actually works, by transferring energy healing through chakra cords. But if you're not aware of them, or if you're not aware if they're open and closed and you don't manage your connections, you can get drained of energy, or you can take on people's emotions. You can take on people's anxiety, for example, because that's a type of fear. It's an emotional energy, and it can transfer from person to person. So a healer always needs to understand emotional and energetic self-protection. By the way, I want to remind you guys again, you guys do not need to do emotional and energetic self-protection exercises. You've gone past that point. But it's something we need to teach to other people, because once a higher mind has learned how to do this, by the way, then it does it automatically. So quite often the lower mind doesn't need to do anything. That's why so many people out there don't necessarily suffer from things like this, because their higher mind might be just doing it automatically. So the lower mind can go through its life without even learning about it. Okay, next is anatomy. Okay, so now we start all the lessons on anatomy. So we'll do an intro where we talk about the structure of energy, the structure of matter, the structure of magnetic fields, and how magnetic fields can arrange themselves into structures. And we talk about the material body, which you all know very well already, of course. 2 lessons on the material body, mostly to remind people. And then we talk about lower mind anatomy. Lower mind is an energy framework, a full body energy framework. Some people out there call it the etheric template. I've seen that word being used now and then. We call it the lower mind, mainly because it's a big part of it is an overlay to the nervous system and the brain. So when we're thinking, when the brain thinks, the lower mind thinks, it's an overlay to it. So in terms of thinking, you might as well say lower mind, brain, same thing. But there's lots more in the lower mind of interest. In fact, all the karma producing, processing and burning organs are in the lower mind, which is why we always need to come back into an incarnation to burn off the rest of our karma. That's why we get tied to incarnations, to burn off karma. This is well known in many ancient Eastern philosophies. And then we have a couple of lessons on the energy body anatomy. The energy body is another magnetic energy framework, and this holds all the famous stuff that everybody's heard of. Chakra systems, meridian systems, kundalini system, and some others, free flow system, storage systems, things like that. And then we have a lesson on the higher mind anatomy. And here we go into a very, very interesting subject, the subject of consciousness itself, or awareness itself, and how a small little organ called the awareness filter in the middle of the head, actually in the location of the pineal gland, is channeling or processing our awareness. So we'll talk about the higher mind anatomy. And then structuring the healing journey. So structuring the healing journey is based on a process that we have to go through in network healers. When we first get somebody, has anyone got any questions so far? I've been rattling on for a while. All right, so structuring the healing journey, it's a process we go through in network healers. When we get somebody new into network healers, we have to assess them, we have to glean all the information out of them, understand what they're going through, where they are in their healing journey exactly, where they are in their spiritual journey exactly. And then we have to create a process for them, a healing journey. We have to structure it in such a way. And we've got a form to fill out, and we've got a guide for this as well. So we've got a lesson on that. Then we have a lesson on joining network healers. We're into March now. Joining network healers. So there's a few procedures to go when we actually join the hub. They're mostly visualization exercises, like for example joining brow chakras between every healer in the group, because healing energy over a distance, and this is how we work over a distance. We don't there is hands healing involved, but the way we want to work with network healers is not to be limited by geography. So a lot of the people you're going to be dealing with are going to be anywhere. They could be anywhere, basically. So network healers is designed as a virtual healing platform, you could say. So it's distance healing that we need to focus on mainly. We do have a system of hands healing that we teach as well, but that's another story. So joining network healers is all about joining brow chakras, because distance healing energy goes through the brow chakra. It's a type of telepathy, and it goes through chakra cords and into the collective mind, and then into somebody else's energy body through their brow chakra. So there's certain exercises that we do when you're joining a hub, and that is brow chakra exercises to join the net. Then we go to energy healing part 2, which is more advanced types of energy healing. Non-intention, I should mention here, is a very important part of how we work in network healers. So there's different types of energy healing. One is called intention healing. That's when we form the intention. We form the intention to send healing. And quite often when we're using hand chakras to transfer, arms and hand chakras to transfer healing energy, that's intention healing, because we are forming the intention in that moment to send energy healing to the recipient. Non-intention is slightly different, because non-intention, the type of healing energy that is sent, is not activated through a thought process in the mind at all. It's actually coming from our higher mind. Now, we're going to talk about this lots, don't worry. But the main point here is that it means we don't have to sit down and send energy healing, because quite a common thing in distance energy healing is to sit down at a particular time, and the recipient sits down at a particular time, and you send energy healing through your intention process in the mind, whether it's visualizations or mantras or whatever. But non-intention, it's coming directly from the higher minds in the network. So we don't sit down at any particular time to send energy healing. Now, it can be a bit of a tricky process if you're used to doing healing in one particular way and then moving on to this network. It can be tricky because you're always wanting to sit. It feels wrong to not actually be sending it with intention. But that's just a process we go through to move to non-intention. It's actually easier, of course. It's less to do, but we'll get into that. We'll get into that, don't worry. Okay, so next is awareness, the 7th principle. So we'll talk about the journey of awareness. We'll talk about the journey of life and growing awareness in all sorts of life forms and the growing of self-awareness until you get to humans on this planet who are, you could say, the most self-aware. Sometimes it's debatable, I know, but the most self-aware on this planet. But still, humans generally are only aware that they are human beings. There's another level of self-awareness which is possible, and that is when the universe becomes aware that it is those human beings. It is the awareness or the consciousness within those human beings. So we'll talk about awareness, the 7th principle. Then we'll talk about the universal trinity, which I can't really go into now, but that's our concept of how the universe actually works. How there is a source to the universe. There is a source to all of physical and all reality around us that we can experience is emerging from something. It has a source to it. The source produces akasha, which is information, non-physical information, which then manifests the universe around us. We'll go into that later. The Book of Codes, we'll talk about the Book of Codes, I talked about that earlier. Then we have 2 lessons on the Golden Energy Healing System, part 1 and 2. And this is our system of energy healing in its totality, and that includes hands healing and all different types of energy healing. And then another lesson on intuition, another lesson on reincarnation and how we apply it to healthcare, another one on karma, how we apply that to healthcare, another one on the collective mind and energy biosphere. I'm racing through them now. Energy healing, and then some case studies, and then some prep for the Free Flow project, because hopefully we're going to start a research project in July, and then there's an exam, of course, at the end. Right, that'll do for that, I think, for the moment.